Welcome to the mysterious Book Emporium. Despite the pleading of her lover Briala, Empress Selene is about to crush the Elven rebellion. Will Briala be able to stop it? Will Selene actually go through with it? Why don't you take a seat as we continue on with The Masked Empire by Patrick Weeks, chapters 6 through 10. Chapter 6. Thren had learned a lot after his friend Lamette died. Together with the local thieves, the Elven Slubs had banded together to create a rebellion against the Lords of Halim-Sharal. Thren no longer feared the humans. In fact, he really liked killing them. He helps the thieves steal a wagon of goods from the humans, killing many in the process. But despite all the death the rebellion has caused, there are some bright moments as well. The Elven people have hope. He walks into the local bar, now the center of the further rebellion, and sees an Elven woman dressed in the finest armor he has seen, and a Dalish man who looks like he has walked out of a legend. He asks if they have come to help them fight for freedom, and Briala tells him that she has come to stop them from all getting killed. Selene's forces move towards Halim-Sharal at a grueling pace. She sits in a stagecoach, wishing she could be riding a horse, as then she wouldn't have to think much on what was about to happen. She has reports that elves from nearby cities have been fleeing to Halim-Sharal and that they are all demanding justice for Lord Mansari, the man responsible for the death of an innocent elven man. Sir Michel, who is sitting along with Selene, asks her a question. Michel raised an eyebrow. You almost sound sorry for them. She smiled sadly. I had hoped to solve the sin a different way, Michel. The elves belong to this empire. They have their place in it, as surely as you or I, and it is my duty before the Maker to provide them guidance, safety, and comfort. What I do now, I do with a heavy heart. She looked at him curiously. And you? His expression didn't change. They have threatened your rule. I would sooner put down a few hundred knife-ears rather than allow Gaspard to endanger the lives of men. I have never seen such anger from you before, Michel. Something in her breast twinged. Loyalty to Briala? For all that she knew, her lover would be broken-hearted at what Selene would have to do at Halim-Sharal. She thought of their last talk before Briala had left, of the passion in her lover's voice. And it is unworthy of you, I think. The elves are peasants. We can no more appreciate the joys and hardships of their lives than they could ours. In their minds, we spend all day eating rare delicates and all night at grand balls. Michel is set in his ways, that they dared raise against the Empress and need to be put down. Selene, on the other hand, mourns what must happen, thinking on how Gaspard will pay for this. Outside Lord Mansuri's home, Briala, Felisan, and Thren stalk around. Thren is uncertain that this is what should be done, but Briala reassures him that this is the only way for people to not get slaughtered. Mansuri will be assassinated, then the elves must end the rebellion. When guards come looking for who the killer is, be nice and respectful. Let them kill innocents and be done with all of this. Thren is confused why this has to be done, almost outraged that Felisan, a Dalish, would condone bowing to humans. Thren yells at Briala too, coming in here and acting like she knows what they've all been through. And he walks off. Felisan comforts Briala, saying that Thren doesn't know her struggles, but he questions what her real motivations are. Is she helping the elves, or Selene? Briala argues that the two are linked, as Gaspard would not be kind to her people. She then asks if the Dalish would help them, but Felisan falls silent, soon saying that they would never see the point of it. Felisan uses his magic to break open the outer wall of Lord Mansuri's home, and the three sneak in. Guards eventually come across them, but Felisan distracts them, letting Briala and Thren continue. They move silently in the halls of the estate, but accidentally come across an elderly elven woman, one of the Lord's servants. After an awkward silence, the woman points slowly in a direction and quietly goes back to her room. Briala and Thren follow her directions to find the Lord asleep in his chambers. Thren stared at the man who had killed his friend. For crimes against Lamette and the elven people, he began, and then broke off as Briala, who had never stopped walking in the first place, leaned over and slit Mansuri's throat. What did you— I wanted him to know! Briala wiped her blade on the sheets and glanced at the body. I believe he just figured it out. Let's go. Briala and Thren argue, but Briala lectures him, saying that a quest for revenge only gets people killed. If they wanted to fight for a cause, they need to do it right, and it may not be exactly what they want. But as they exit the estate, they are surrounded by guards, the Empress's guards, and Sir Michel calls out to her for surrender for the murder of Lord Mansuri. Briala has failed. She surrenders, but Thren refuses and is shot with a dozen arrows before he can do anything else. Sir Michel anxiously goes to bind Briala, and the two exchange a look. He is worried that she will use her favor here, but she lets him know that this is not exactly the time. It's then that Briala looks up to see the sky red and filled with smoke. The slums are burning. After that, her mind goes numb. By the time morning came, the rebellion has been squashed. Selene is with the other nobles, and Hallam Chiral and Count Pierre, the leader of the city, thanks her. She tells them that this is not a happy time and there will be no celebrations. She will ride to the nearby Winter Palace to stay at and let Hallam Chiral take care of their dead. Riding out, Sir Michel meets up with Selene. She asks about Briala and he tells her that she is safe and secured, although she did not react well. While she may have foiled Gaspard's plot, Selene believes she has lost Briala, and she is devastated. Sir Michel turns to Selene, saying that he is surprised Gaspard wouldn't think she would do this. As a chevalier, he should have thought of what to do in this exact outcome. He is not a stupid man. And that's when the army is ambushed by a cloud of black arrows. Chapter 7. Grand Duke Gaspard grins as he watches his archers attack Selene's soldiers. Duke Ramash sits nearby, complaining that it would have been easier to use poison, but Gaspard refuses. The code of honor for the chevaliers does not allow it. Gaspard currently does not wear his family heraldry, so that if he fails here, they will know his actions was not condoned by his family. Not that it wouldn't stop Selene from killing them all anyway, Ramash points out. Gaspard calls his men to charge the line then, and he rides out with them to the front lines. Selene had escaped the battle on her horse, although one of Gaspard's warriors had followed her. Due to the massive swings from his warhammer, she falls from her horse and is about to be killed when Sir Michel rides in. He fights the soldiers, the two men at a standstill, until Selene stabs the warrior in the arm, giving Michel the chance he needs to kill him. Her chest armor, which was purely ceremonial, is dented and useless, so she pries it off. Michel pulls her onto his horse, and they ride to the gates of Hallam Chiral, unsure if Count Pierre is actually on their side or not. As they get close, Count Pierre yells out to them that the choice is theirs, either stay in the city or go to safety in Jader. He and his men will hold the line as long as they can, and off he rides past the Empress. The two decide that Jader will be the best option, as Lady Cyril is a strong supporter of Selene's. So off they go, her men dying so that she can escape. Briala awakens in a nice padded prison cart. Michel had hit the back of her head to knock her out, a mercy so that they could take her gently. Briala thinks back on what has happened. What could have made Selene ride out against the elves? But something doesn't add up. If this was to end Gaspard's plot, it was too easy. There was something else. She could warn Selene about the probability of an attack on the way out. While her hands are bound, she kicks the wall towards the driver and the small windows opened up, with the driver asking what she wants. She thinks for a moment and asks for water, and he gives it to her, and then the panel slides closed. She could warn Selene. She loves Selene, but she can still smell the smoke of the burning elven slums in her hair. She sits silently for a while until she hears the cries of alarm. Gaspard is attacking. She lays on the ground, bracing for impact when the cart topples about. At one point, an arrow passes through the cart, barely missing her. She stays there until the sounds of battle have finally ended, and she hears voices outside. And then, Gaspard finally opens the prison. He remembers her, Selene's handmaiden. She asks why he is lying to the nobles about Selene's intentions, but he says that he has not lied. Selene's actions show that she cares more about the elves than Orlais. The only lie he told was when he suggested she was sleeping with one. But when Briala's breath catches, Gaspard is shocked to realize that he had been right, and that it's a woman. He laughs. The two talk, and Gaspard realizes that Briala was able to catch onto his plan very quickly but didn't warn Selene, to which Briala only responds that the burning of Hallam Chiral is to blame. Gaspard tells her that Briala will be okay if only she tells the right things, and she is able to piece together that they don't have Selene. Gaspard pauses and orders her to be kept under guard and make sure no one talks to her, because she's dangerous. Briala sits in the wagon thinking on how much easier it would have been if Selene had died. She takes the arrow that came into the wagon and begins to work on her restraints. Gaspard talks to Count Pierre. The man has been terribly wounded and will likely have a long, painful death over the next few days. Gaspard asks him if he knows where Selene is, and he refuses to talk. Duke Ramash then suggests torture. Count Pierre of Hallam Chiral is a lord of Orlais, Ramash. More than that, he is my prisoner. My code prohibits his torture. Ramash nodded. Yes, of course. Perhaps you might wish to examine the defenses, my lord. If you take a few hours to ensure that the preparations are to your liking, I might have more news. Ramash! I've done. Gaspard stood and turned to face the lord, his armor clanking with the movements. I understand that you don't think much of the Chevalier's code, but I will not violate the spirit of it to obey the letter. I will not torture him. I will not leave so that you may do so. If you lay a hand upon my prisoner, I will defend him with my life. Or, as it is more likely, with yours. Ramash swallowed. Of course, my lord, I apologize. Accepted. Now gather the men at the command tent. I want plans for the fastest and safest way to burn Hallam Shiral to the ground. Yes, my lord. Ramash bowed and left without another word. Gaspard, Pierre said from behind him. Selene could still be inside, Pierre. Ramash begs for Gaspard not to burn the city that he so loves, but Gaspard doesn't budge. And finally, Pierre calls out Jader, explaining that Selene is likely to go there. Gaspard then calls for a mage to come in. He explains that this mage, a young woman, is Liane de Montesimard, daughter to Lord Montesimard, and she is an apostate. But Pierre won't tell anyone about her, because now Gaspard knows his weakness, his love for his city. Exiting the tent, Gaspard calls to Ramash to set up blockades on the road to Jader. Gaspard has control of the remaining surrounding cities, so there's nowhere else for her to run. Selene is trapped. Chapter 8. Briella kicks the wall of the prison coach again, and the little window slides open. Briella had lodged the arrow in her armor and pretends that she is wounded from a late stray arrow. The man rushes to open the door, and she is able to surprise him and kill him. She is free. With skills that she had learned from being an elf in Orlais, she steals a cloak and a bucket and casually walks around the camp. No one notices an elf on an errand. She moves slowly towards a line of trees where she will finally be able to get away, but a scout and guard notices her. She tries to ignore them, but when they notice something is amiss, they call the alarm, and she attacks and kills both of them, and she begins to run towards the trees as fast as she can. She hears hoofbeats and worries that she cannot outrun them when the ground below her begins to move. The men chasing her scream out in terror. She looks around to notice that Felisson is now beside her, and apparently has been watching her escape the entire time. The two escape into the woods. Selene and Sir Michel encounter a few of Gaspard's men, but are able to defeat them. From the dead soldiers, she is able to fashion a full set of leather armor, something that will make it much easier for her to fight in. She's also able to steal a horse. Eventually, they come to a group of men from Selene's own army, men who retreated when the commander sounded off the call. Selene tells them that they plan to move to Jader, but soldiers tell her that the road is blocked with Gaspard's men, so they will need to make it straight to Valréaux. Before they leave, Sir Michel shoots her a look. When Gaspard's men find you, what will you do? When they ask you where your empress is going, when they ask you what you know or where you saw her, what will you tell them to save your life? The younger man gave her a hopeless look. Selene grimaced. She knew the answer as well as the young man did. Made it easier, though no less grim. Do it, she said to Michel. Michel cuts down the soldiers, minus an older man who had not fought back. The man tells her that if his death will keep her safe, he will die with honor. Selene tells him that he will live then, and if she sees him again, knows that he is the Empress's personal scout. He leaves as Michel shoots Selene a look. Michel begins to clean up the body so that they will not be found as she begins to mourn what she has done to Hallam Shiral, and that Gaspard has beat her. They ride together through the countryside until they come across Briella and Felisson by chance. Felisson explains that they are looking for a Dalish clan to hide in and bids them luck on their journey. When Michel questions why they are not joining them, Briella brings up the burning again, and also throwing her in prison. Selene offers to Felisson her favor if she reaches Valréaux. That's awfully vague, the elf said. Last time the elves made a deal like this, they got the Dales. Well, at least until your people decide to declare an exalted march and take them back. Gaspard will drown the Dales in blood to be rid of you forever. Selene looked at the sky to the west, where Hallam Shiral still smoked. And if he doesn't, you'll be lucky to survive whatever madness the Templars and the mages come to without a firm hand to keep them in check. What are you prepared to offer? The elf asked. A chance for your leader to convince me that the Dalish are worth the fits it will cause among my nobles, if I ever allow elves to help, Selene said evenly. Anything more is for your keeper's ears. The Dalish elf was silent, staring at her as if weighing her. Finally, Briella nodded. We need to move. Chapter 9. Briella had dreamed of meeting the Dalish, a child's fantasy of living with them as a princess with Selene as her servant, or when Selene was kind to her, back in a time where spirits did the cleaning and no one was a servant. The group had been walking for more than a week now. She asks Felisson if the Dalish will help Selene, as she has helped then, and Felisson tells her that she has made two mistakes. One, that Selene has not helped the elves. Briella has. And the second, she thinks of the elves as humans do. The Dalish and the alienage elves are not the same. And why must the Dalish care what Selene has done for the city elves? At night, Selene has been practicing her fighting skills, trying to warm up for any battle they come across. This night, Briala comes to her telling her that she is doing a move wrong. They discuss it a bit, but Briala finally cracks. "Damn you, Selene." Briala's big, beautiful eyes filled with tears. They caught the light from the fire shimmering in the darkness like a cat's as Briala stepped closer. The pulse in her neck fluttered fast, though she moved as gracefully as always. "Don't explain it. I know why. I just wish you had cared more. It would have been a lock suite in the palace for a few years, nothing more." Selene kept her voice low, aware that Michel and Pelisson had stopped planning and were looking their way. "It would have changed nothing for us. Your hair still stinks of the smoke from the people you burned," Briala said. "That is a change." The next morning, Selene and Michel ride off ahead of Briala and Pelisson, reaching a tiny village. Before they get there, Michel notes that something is off. It's late in the season, yet the harvest had not been brought in. As they enter the city, they see pyres for the dead, old blood on the ground, and no sign of anyone. They call it to whoever is there, and a few people emerge from their houses. They tell Selene that Gaspard's men came to the town to watch nearby Jader, but Lady Cyril's men attacked them all, killing many in the village for helping Gaspard. The man telling the story tells them that he doesn't even know who Gaspard is. Selene goes still. Gaspard hasn't destroyed this village. Her ally has. Selene then asks if they have any supplies to spare, and then they leave. Briala and Pelisson meet them in the road, and then they continue on their way, with Selene thinking her people deserve better. Gaspard sits in a camp near Hallam-Sharal. An old soldier of Selene's is brought into him. He was caught trying to make a campfire for fish. The soldier's story feels too rehearsed to Gaspard, and the only reason he would do such is if the soldier had contact with Selene. The soldier blurts out that he hasn't, but it's too late. Gaspard knows. The man tells Gaspard that he is Selene's personal scout, and he will die with honor. He will not say anything more to Gaspard. He tells the man that he respects that, and asks if he would like to die quickly or by battle. The man chooses battle. Gaspard orders for swords, and the two fight. While the man is good, it's obvious that he's not used fighting with a sword, as he had been a pikeman. Gaspard wins the duel, killing the man, and holds him upright while he dies. While Ramash thinks the whole thing was unnecessary, the surrounding soldiers cheer for Gaspard. He calls for scouts to follow the man's trail, as it might lead them to Selene. Chapter 10. Sir Michel had grown up in the slums of Montfort, and while the Chevaliers had taught him many things, he really hated the forest. Pelisson told him they were getting close to the Dalish, and even Michel could see the signs. In camp, he tended to his sword Sheraton with great care. Briala and Selene had gone off to practice their dagger works, while Michel and Pelisson were left in camp. Pelisson speaks up to him, tells him to tie his horse up tight that night. Michel takes offense at this, as he knows how to take care of a horse, unlike a knife here. But Pelisson shoots back that while Briala promised to keep his commoner heritage, he made no such promise. Michel is chilled, asking what Pelisson wants, so he answers, "Why stay with Selene?" Michel answers that he swore an oath, something that a knife ear wouldn't understand. The two argue a bit, with Pelisson mocking Michel's heritage and Michel mocking his. "How easy it must be for you," Michel shot back, "walking around with your life tattooed on your face." Pelisson leaned back and looked up. Through the clouds, a half-moon shone dimly. "Once, my people walked this land as gods. We worked magic that would blind you with its beauty. Now we lurk in the deep forest and prepare for the next time you Shemlin do something that upsets the balance of this world. Do you know what I was in my time, boy?" "A young Dalish elf who ran through the forest listening to stories?" Michel shot Pelisson a look. Pelisson started, then laughed despite himself. "Well said, Chevalier." Michel goes on to question how Selene would be sleeping with Briala, as she was an elf, while Pelisson agrees, wondering why Briala would want to carry on with the woman who burned down Hallam-Sharal. And Michel needs to not be so angry. He has enough blood on his hands to be a man, and he needs to start acting like one. Pelisson then goes on to say that he has found philandris, a weed that grows where the veil is thin, so that's why they must be careful, hence his earlier warning about tying up the horses. And then there is a roar. Selene practices with her daggers with the help of Briala, who notes that with the practice, she is back to where she once was with her skill. As Briala turns to go, Selene begs her to stay. What can she say? Sorry will not cut it. "Are you truly angry at me, Bria? Are you angry at yourself for knowing in the back of your mind that I did what I had to do?" Selene took another step forward. She was close enough to touch Briala now. "I swear to you, if there had been a way that left those elves unharmed, I would have taken it." She reached out slowly, carefully, and put a hand on Briala's shoulders. "How long have we been together, Bria? Do you think I never noticed you urging me to sympathy for the elves? I know how important they are to you, and I agree with you. Maker, I have seen how intelligent you are. How many elves are wasted in those alienages when they could be doing more? How many great minds and loyal servants did I burn in that slum because I could see no other way? Her voice caught. In the darkness, Brialla's face was still just a silhouette. That isn't why I stayed with you, Selene. Selene forced a smile and shook her head. I know. But if you are done with me, know that the elves will not suffer for it. Suddenly, a tree falls beside the two, and the others come to life and attack them. Selene is protective of Brialla, and finally Michelle and Felisande come running in, helping fight the trees. They run back to camp to grab as many supplies as they can. Michelle can't find his horse, just as a large thing lands in the middle of the camp. It's Sheraton, his poor body broken from the Sylvans. Michelle is shaken and puts the horse out of its misery before the group heads out. Brialla has lost track of how long they have been running, and she is surprised to find that Sir Michel, a man she has never seen emotional and would kill a peasant without flinching, was crying for his horse. Felisande suggests that they find water as it would slow them down. Finally, Brialla and Felisande wade their way into a stream, but find Michelle and Selene are not behind them. Brialla rushes back to save them and finds Sir Michel holding Selene, who has had her head smashed. Michelle is surprised to find Brialla, thinking that she would have left them behind, and he hands her Selene so that she might save her and that he can fight the trees. But just then, flaming arrows fly across the sky to damage the Sylvans. The Dalish have saved them. Masiranas, she said haltingly, I owe you my life and... It's as he says, one of the Dalish called back across the creek. A flat ear and 2 Shemlin. Bind them, came an older man's voice, and the elf before her nodded. Kill them if they resist. Beside her, Michelle looked at Selene, then the elves. Then with a soft laugh, he dropped his sword. At long last, Brialla, you found your people. Discussion. First off, thank you so much for bearing with me, as I've had a very few busy weeks. So I'm so sorry this is late. But with that, I actually really don't have that much to talk about with these past few chapters. A lot of it was just kind of action, which there really isn't that much to say, I guess. But thankfully, you guys seem to have a lot to talk about, so a lot of this will be from y'all. Selene talks about owning a ring from the Black Fox, a legendary folk hero in Theta similar to Robin Hood. You can actually read more about his tale in the Codex entries from Dragon Age Origins, and from various items descriptions from all 3 games so far. While nothing big has happened regarding the Black Fox, it's interesting that he actually appears throughout the series. Anana says, honestly, I was put off by Selene's comment that she would just put Brialla in home arrest and how comfortable it would be. I don't like the trope of putting one's lover in the golden cage. This is the first big minuses from Selene for me. I have to agree with Michelle that rulers' bed affairs are a matter of state, no matter how much I would like Selene and Brialla to be happy together. And honestly, they seem to have some unresolved/unspoken issues to work through. I'm not sure if I ship them. And same, really. I will say that while I don't ship them, I still put them back together in Dragon Age Inquisition. In some weird way, I feel like they deserve each other. I don't think either is going to be able to have a more stable relationship with another person. And if your goal is to have Orlais be sympathetic towards the elven people, then I think it's really your best bet. But we'll go into this at the end of the novel, I guess. Sheraton, the horse, in all honesty, is probably in the top 3 saddest deaths for this book series for me. This is 100% because of the fact that it's just an innocent horse and not anything to have to do with Michelle. R.I.P. horse. I will never forget you, but I will completely forget your name. Also, let's talk about the name. I asked a dear friend Anne-Marie who speaks French to see what the name translates to, and she told me that it sort of could translate to, like, terms of endearment, but it's also, like, a more feminine form of it, and it doesn't really make that much sense, and together we were just overall kind of confused about the name. But then she found something interesting. She found out that the name Sheraton is actually named from a horse from another book series by David Eddings. The series, I think, is called the Belgariad or the Melorian. I don't know anything about these. I'm really just learning about them for the first time. Apparently, Felisande's name is also pretty similar to another character in the book whose name is Falisan. From a chat report that Anne-Marie found, apparently there's a couple other references to the book series, so apparently there's a little bit of hints towards this book. So fun facts, and thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for finding that out for me. Brialla's fantasy of spirits being servants is something I find really interesting, as that it's kind of what sounds like could have happened back in Arlathan. But one wonders, and we're going into theory territory here, Solus is all about seeing servants Solus is all about seeing spirits as people. At one point, the elves did take spirits as servants and mistreated them, as many servants are, and did those spirits become people, much like coal, yet the elves didn't see it. Are Solus's people actually not the elves, but the spirits that became them? Servants who were abused because people didn't think they were people. This is just a quick theory from me, but I think an interesting one. Yash says, Felisan went on a rant and almost revealed his true identity, but then Michelle had to interrupt. Stupid Shemlin. See, someone asked in the comments of the last video, how do I know that he's an ancient elf and not a modern one? And just what Yash says here, he is super bad at hiding it. He's described and describes himself as ancient and treats literally everyone he meets like a child. Felisan is just so cocky with his knowledge because he knows that no one's going to guess that he is an immortal elf from an eon ago. And he's right, too. And you kind of get the same feeling from Solus as well. So, in short, in the future of the series, if someone's getting cocky about how young everyone is, but they look kind of young themselves, seems to be a giant warning sign of being an ancient being. Now, I'm putting this at the end because I got a great email from Catherine. Unfortunately, it's very long, so if you want to read the whole thing, pause the screen while the images pop up. But, to paraphrase, Selene, despite what she says, still sees the elves as inferior. She lies to Briala, saying that she would have done anything to help the elves of Palm Shiral if she had a choice. But Catherine believes that she did. She just chose the easiest. It wasn't about the rebellion at all. It was about defeating Gaspard. Selene vows to hurt Gaspard for the destroyed village, even though it was her own people who killed them. Now, overall, I do have to agree with a lot of her points, but I do want to argue for Selene on the killing of Hallam Shiral, which I didn't think I would do, but here I am. I guess I'm not happy about it. But I do think Selene's hands were as tied as she tells Briala they were. I think it all comes down to how bad it would be if it was believed that Briala and Selene were lovers still. Selene and Gaspard are neck and neck with popularity with the nobles of Olay. With them, she has control over her nation, and without, she risks herself getting killed. Remember that in Olay, the elves are less than people, and many nobles treat them as animals. They would see her affair with Briala as if she was sleeping with a dog, disgusting and unnatural. It would easily lose her the crown and likely her life, as well as Briala's and probably a lot of other elves as well, to be honest. Gaspard is not kind to the elves, as we have seen. Selene honestly believes that killing Hallam Shiral is going to save even more people in Olay. And remember, Briala does too. Now, she doesn't want to, but she does know it's true. But I think Briala and Catherine have a good point. Selene does blame Gaspard for this and feels that she was forced, which, although is technically true, she is still murdering innocents. Selene will be able to sleep at night blaming Gaspard, while Briala still smells the burning houses. Selene really is just as icy as he looks. So I guess to sum up, her hands were forced to keep her position and save the elves, which the two are linked. But she does blame Gaspard so she can sleep safe at night. So which, to all of this, you then probably ask, when we get to Inquisition and a lot of people know about the two, why is it okay to bring them together? Because Gaspard dies. Without him, no one has a good claim to the throne. While others may try, with the two of them being masters at the game, it's going to be hard to go against them. Them being Briala and Selene, I should say. No one else has the pull with the nobles that Gaspard has, and he has no heirs to take up his claim. So, while it is possible that another rival comes up, it's going to take a long time to do so. And with the oncoming troubles in Thedas, Olay might have something to bring themselves together with, much like that blight Selene was wishing for. And with that, thank you to everyone who submitted entries, and I look forward to what everyone comes up with next time. If you have any comments, artworks, or anything else, please send it in. Our next section will consist of chapters 11 through 15 of Masked Empire, and because I did have to skip a week, it's going to be an extra long gap between this episode and the next, again, due to Christmas. So I'm really sorry about that, but that's just the way that this is going to have to be. But once we get into the new year, things will get normal again, I promise. So please send me all of your anything by December 30th, 2018. Either comment below, send me an email at gilderthon@gmail.com, tweet at gilderthon on Twitter, or PM user Gillanon on Reddit. Dress your all.